What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala,
Ba 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 ba.
your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
It's the start of a new week. It feels like we are in spring already. The days of winter are long gone in Singapore.
Oh, you mean the cold and wet weather in Singapore?
Yeah. I'm sweating again. Having to
It's nice
go
and
straight
humid, but
into-
it's still raining quite a bit, right? It's still
yeah,
raining
and at
quite a
night
bit.
it's still chilly, lah. At night it's still chilly, lah. Still chilly.
Yeah, but not the kind of cold chilly that was around like a month ago, lah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, but how else was your weekend, man?
It was good. It's good. Yeah, I think a lot of dinner conversations and all that. People are digesting all the latest announcements from the budget, and yeah, I think shameless plug for our own podcast that we did with Reggie on the budget, which I think was interesting, a lot of fun for us, and yeah, even Tristen himself said that he enjoyed. Being in the room and hearing conversations, right? So I think people of all ages, young and old, will enjoy the podcast.
But at those dinners, were you the one to bring up the budget when no one else wanted to talk about it, and then you forced it into the conversation?
Oh, you mean like how it is normally for you? No, it wasn't. It was. I very seamlessly join conversations. I know what it's like at dinners with you. Like it's can be quite stressful, very stressful.
My dinners are always full of joy and laughter.
No. I distinctly remember like how
Come, tell what do you distinctly remember?
I think there's one time you were very upset because like it was vegetarian Tuesdays, and then like I didn't want to eat vegetarian, and I was like, I'm gonna eat like meat and rice like right now, and then you were like, because there wasn't anyone to offload.
That is complete fiction. Okay, Terrence, to set the record straight, I never mandate that the people I'm around me also have vegetarian food on vegetarian Tuesdays. It's just that my only ask is that we go to a place where there's vegetarian food lah. I never force you to eat vegetarian food.
If the place is a lot further away and everything, then how? That's the thing lah, right?
Then if there's something that I can get by nearby, I will. I won't impose on other people's dietary requirements or habits. It's just the location. If there could be something vegetarian friendly, that would be ideal.
Yeah. Actually, that's a separate argument from. I think you like to talk about a lot of things, right? Like to put politics in the table where there isn't nobody's talking about politics and things like that.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
You do acknowledge it, right?
No, as in I like if it's with a group of friends or people I know, I like to ask questions that maybe like have to, wouldn't say make people uncomfortable, but just you get a bit more perspective lah. And maybe it's
You
not
like
a common dinner question lah.
Or you like to prod a little bit more, right?
Yeah. But you also like to prod. I seen you prod, okay? I seen you prod at dinner.
Depends on the situation.
Seen you prod. Don't give me this nonsense. You're a prodder also.
No, over the weekend I was at places in new environments, the people I wasn't very familiar with and all. And generally I sort of sit back a little bit lah, and then sort of try to read the room, get a sense of the room first before I jump into things. Yeah.
But did they prod?
Yeah. I think you know how there's a very like curious dance about what do you do, and what's your opinion about this, what's your opinion about that. So I think a great place to start at conversations these days is to talk about the cost of living, whether cost of living in Singapore, cost of living in places that you visited recently on holiday and things like that. Then you get, because that kind of question gives you a good sense of what the person thinks about politics and culture and things like that as well, So actually talking about like rising prices, I realize is a very interesting, very easy way to understand how a person's political views are and things like that. No?
But that can't be the first question lah, right? You got to warm up.
No. It always starts very innocent. Like, oh, have you traveled recently? Oh, how was it there? Oh, how does it feel? Was it a lot more expensive? Then you start going to, oh, fuck the PAP and all that kind of thing. No, not fuck the PAP. I mean, fuck the rising prices. Yeah. So this is not it's not a political statement, but an understanding of how they lean politically and all that. Yeah.
And do you feel the need to have a decent understanding of whomever you meet, even if it's the first time dinner? You just want to get a feel, or you're okay not getting it?
No. It's so that I can sort of understand where I stand in the room, in the conversation and all that. Like, so if someone does say something hypothetically, like fuck the PAP, am I going to like dig my heels there and say, no, there's a more nuanced explanation to everything and you're not seeing the big picture. You're being like any other commenter on the internet, by just like cursing the PAP and all, is that the kind of debate I want to get in over dinner that you're with your family and your kid and your wife and all that. You want to start talking about politics.
Oh, so you're
you kind of got to read the room.
You sizing people up, like you sizing people up. So you decide whether you prod or don't prod, to prod or not to prod.
Yeah. Maybe that's the difference between you and me, lah. I think you generally, you just prod, lah, right? You just prod.
Hey, no. That is a big assumption. I think I'm quite discretionary with my prodding and proddy, lah. Being a proddy or a prodder.
I see.
Yeah.
So what technique you use to when do you decide to prod or not prod?
I think if someone kind of opens up and shares a tidbit about themselves that I wouldn't expect, then I'm like, oh, okay, this person is open to sharing their thoughts, even though like it's a bit personal, and that's when I'm like, oh, okay, can I have a deeper conversation?
Then you go straight into it.
No, then I'm like, okay,
what do you think of the baby bonus enhancements that are given to people? Do you think it really helps birth rates in Singapore? That's when
all
you
they
go into
say
that mode.
is I don't take pistachio butter because I'm allergic to nuts. I'm like, all right, what are your thoughts on the fiscal
about
policy of Singapore?
Leong Man Wai's housing policies? I know, because you don't like pistachio butter, you must have a thought about it. Please. You see, Harish is like a great guest to have
fact
around.
with me that you didn't need to share, and I respect that. Not to say that I eat a lot of pistachio butter. I don't even know why the fuck pistachio butter came to me. Maybe it's because I just had peanut butter. Yeah.
I see.
Everybody has their little tips and tricks of the trade.
But you find it, I find it, I'm sort of like, getting used to meeting people in larger groups again, I think for the longest time I avoided it, whether it was COVID or my personal things that happened that maybe didn't feel like I want to hang out with people. But I think now it seems like so everyone's gone back to come over for dinner, bigger party, things like that, right? So just getting back into the flow of it and like remembering like how to do it, like how to just hang out with people, yeah.
I think probably a lot of people are feeling it, because for me also now, like I'm like, wow, hanging out with people, it feels a lot more familiar, like, and I miss it, like. I miss certain aspects of it. So yeah,
the familiar as in you've missed it, that feeling, like, for a couple of years.
The dynamic, even like when catching up with friends for a meal or something, it's now natural. Like, you want to grab coffee after this in a group.
Oh yeah. Rather than
last time was like, okay, a meal.
Let's wait for things.
Okay. Yeah. So it's nice.
Yeah, there's also the sense that let's not wait too long also, because you never know what could happen, like another COVID-23 or whatever nonsense. So if you meant to meet up, I think let's just meet up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yes,
yeah.
A long introduction. That was how our weekend was, readjusting back to society, right?
Yeah. And the one question for everyone to take back is, are you a prodder or a proddy? I mean, of course, by the end of this, hopefully you have a lot more questions, lah. But that feels like a whole segment on its own, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, the stuff we're discussing today is very proddable, right? You can use it to prod a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, it's quite exciting, quite exciting.
But before we go into the exciting stuff, what is one thing that we want people to do?
I think if you've been a listener of this podcast, from way back or from more recent, and you enjoy it and you have come back, it'd be great if you could just share it with one other person who may not have heard of us. Could be the podcast, could be our social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where we share snippets if you want to just tantalize their earbuds for a while. What earbuds? Tantalize their eardrums. Yeah, that will be great.
Yes.
Cool. I thought you were going to add on something.
Share. No, that's it. Go and share. I don't want to
and share.
Overdo it. Yeah, just go and share. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first topic, I'm guessing the reason why you said it is a good topic to set the context for prodding is because chances are, if you're listening, you probably have interacted with the person or the works of the person in question. And essentially, there's been news that, Roald Dahl, right? There's the publisher of his books, Puffin, has removed language that has been deemed offensive across all his books. And it's caused a lot of discussion amongst general public authors, and it's just interesting because the extent to which basically they got sensitivity readers, and I want to just talk a bit about what a sensitivity reader is further down the line. But they went over the books and they removed words like fat and ugly, or they replaced fat with enormous. There are a lot of examples floating around online about how, to what extent it's been removed. But yeah, it's just interesting. So when you first came across this topic, I'm sure you have read Roald Dahl. I think you've read even a lot more than me also, right? You've read a lot of Roald Dahl books, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I've read. Yeah, I like his books, yeah. I remember being very fond of his books when I was younger, yeah.
Yeah, me too. And so when you saw this, when you saw examples, what went through your mind?
Yeah, this inevitable march of wokeness that has sort of pervaded popular culture, and now, it's literally threatening a lot of works of art as well, right? In trying to sanitize works of art to make them more palatable for current or future generations. I mean, you see it. The reason I say that is inevitable much because this, parallel to this story, there's so many other things going on. There's that whole controversy about the new Hogwarts Legacy game because of its ties with J.K. Rowling, who's deemed transphobic. And then there's, for example, Justin Roiland, the co-creator of Rick and Morty. People are asking, can we still watch or enjoy Rick and Morty knowing that he was a domestic abuser and things like that? And yeah, there's just so many examples right now of beloved franchises, beloved IP, being questioned because of the actions of the artist, or in this case, in Roald Dahl's case, the language that he used. And Roald Dahl's interesting because even as children's books, they're a lot darker than a lot of children's books you'd find out there, right? I think the content itself was never meant to be all just fun and games and all just fairies and roses for young children. It was a lot of stuff that the stories were darker and a little, in some cases, even mean-spirited, right? But that's also what made them very different and very interesting and very beloved by generations of young people. So, there's a lot of this debate going on now, which is why I thought, okay, it's probably something that, even listeners of this podcast would experience themselves and will have to grapple for themselves when they think about how much they want to engage with and what kind of art they want to engage with, for whether it's for themselves or for their children. Yes. Yeah. So that's the long answer of how I felt. But what do you feel about it when you saw it?
I was kind of shocked. So my first thought was like, okay, maybe it's just a few changes. Maybe it's just very superficial things that don't affect the story. But basically across all the books, there have been hundreds of changes. Certain lines that were never written by Roald Dahl have been added, and I'll give some examples after this. And basically, right now, all of Roald Dahl's works are managed by the Roald Dahl Story Company, which was acquired by Netflix, I think 2 years ago. And
so that's a fun fact I only learned. Yeah, this is something I only learned through this. That Netflix apparently they bought all the rights for Roald Dahl stories, everything, for $500 million a couple years back. Man.
2 years, I think 2 years back, $500 million. Oh shit!
Yeah, $500 million. Yeah.
Wow. So the Roald Dahl Story Company still manages it, but it's owned by Netflix, and they did this in conjunction with Inclusive Minds, which they call themselves a collective for people who are passionate about inclusion and accessibility in children's literature. And they're basically made up of ex-writers or current writers who want to push for change in the industry. So, and more representation. So the authors like Salman Rushdie, I think the chairman of one of the writing non-profits in the US also have been very vocal against it. But just to give you an idea of the changes, right? So for example, they give some examples in a lot of the articles, but someone on Twitter kind of took like screenshots of and made a comparison lah. So for example, in The Witches, right, the 2001 edition, the line is, "Don't be foolish," my grandmother said. "You can't go around pulling the hair of every lady you meet, even if she's wearing gloves. Just you try it and see what happens." And then, I think this was with regards to the witches being bald under the wigs. So the rework line is, "Don't be foolish," my grandmother said. "Besides, there are plenty of other reasons why women might wear wigs, and there is certainly nothing wrong with that." And then also in The Witches, "Even if she is working as a cashier in a supermarket or typing letters for a businessman." Then the change is, "Even if she is working as a top scientist or running a business." So it's interesting to see the changes because it gives you some idea of how extensive it is lah. And there are even certain lines that, I mean, there are lines that are trimmed off, but there are lines that are added. Let me find an example. Let's see. So in James and the Giant Peach, the centipede sings, "Aunt Sponge was terrifically fat and tremendously flabby at that. And Aunt Spiker was thin as a wire and dry as a bone, only drier." So they took off the full verses and they replaced it with, "Aunt Sponge was a nasty old brute and deserved to be squashed by the fruit. And Aunt Spiker was much of the same and deserves half of the blame." And like in Matilda, one character is no longer the most formidable female, it is the most formidable woman. In Charlie and Chocolate Factory, Oompa Loompas are no longer small men, they are small people. So I mean, it goes across that line. Apparently, there are like hundreds of changes lah. So when I saw that, that's when I was like, oh shit, why does it have to go down to that extent? Because, okay, you know, we also write, right? We've written scripts for TV. A lot of what we do, there is writing. And you know that even changing a single word or putting in a single word, there's a lot of thought that could go into it. You know? So when I saw that, I'm like, walao, that's damn chalat, yeah. So yeah, damn chalat.
But there is also what people have also said that this is actually not the first time this has been done for Roald Dahl's books.
True.
Apparently, in fact, in the 70s, Roald Dahl himself rewrote certain parts of his book. I think, like, if I'm not wrong, the example you mentioned was of Oompa Loompa. I think Oompa Loompa was a specific race, initially a specific race at first. But later he himself removed references of the race lah. If I'm not wrong, you probably can fact check that. But Roald Dahl himself has done that to sort of move with the times as well lah, right? You know, and I think in the 70s there's a big civil movement about going against segregation, and also that was a big part what he did. So what is so different from what he's doing, what the estate is doing now versus what he himself did in the 70s that makes you go jalat?
Because in the 70s he did it himself. And okay, so the way I see anyone who writes a book or creates content is like, as far as possible, it should be that person's work lah, in every aspect of it. And if they want to change it, sure, go ahead. But when other people kind of change it on their behalf, then I feel like, wow, I don't know, like, I mean, okay, so first of all, I'm guessing the Roald Dahl Story Company, it's a company that he set up. I need to fact check that. But maybe it's people he really trusts. But that's where I feel like you are literally changing what makes the book so special in many ways. I'm not saying calling people fat and all makes the book special, but it's like a dish lah, a food lah. You got this amazing nasi lemak, and you change the coconut milk with skim milk. You still get like rice cooked with milk, but there's something that's different lah. And I feel like, wow, then where does it end lah? Can't it just take the Yeah.
In one sense, like it's just a few words, right? I mean, the general spirit of everything he's saying remains the same, right? And he says rather than just say someone's enormously fat, you say that enormous, which kind of describes that they're big, lah, right?
Yeah.
And you can fill in the blanks for yourself about him being fat or anything like that, lah. So there's like, I don't know, maybe like less than 0.1% of all the words that appear in the stories, lah, right? All these words. So why does it really materially change the subject matter or anything that you feel like, wow, you disrespects the artist's vision?
Actually, okay, so I don't think it materially changes. Like you read the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it's probably going to be the same story. But maybe it's the fear in me that it's retroactively changing stuff as opposed to just saying, okay, this is the book that was published in this and this year. You know, like Gone with the Wind. You know that thing they did with Gone with the Wind? They played something at the start and said, okay, this was done in a time that doesn't reflect what we blah blah blah, and do that lah. So that's why I feel like you can still have the work of art which can spur conversations. Of course, I'm not a parent, or not a parent yet, and I can imagine when your kids come up and use these words which are maybe not the best words, you'll be like, shit, I wish they didn't see them in the first place. Which is why I also want to get your perspective as a parent. Because to me, you can keep the work in its original form, but maybe have more disclaimers lah. I don't know. But to just change it retroactively, yeah, it's the fear. Then how far back do we go? How far back do we alter things? Because I can imagine someone writing, like publishing a novel with the N word now that was written maybe 100 years ago.
Yeah,
that one feels like universally they would change it lah, right?
I think like there's examples like Huckleberry Finn, right?
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of language in there that was used to describe, if I'm not wrong, about slavery and everything as well. So it's a very clear example. Yeah, there's a work of literature that's been used by generations for in school and everything, but there's questionable language in there.
Yeah. So then, like, back to you, like as a parent, right? Does it impact or influence any way that you're thinking about this?
I mean, I think we've had a lot of discussions about this. Yeah, I'm definitely of the persuasion that you need to put more disclaimers up front, right? Because like even like you said, like it might not materially change the content, but the spirit of it is that you're sort of you're sort of going back and sort of rewriting history or rewriting the intention behind certain texts lah. And I think like what Salman Rushdie is probably he's probably the best person to give a quote about this lah, right? Because literally there was a fatwa, a death sentence put on his head, a bounty put on his head for something that he had written in text in a book, right? And so for him to speak out against censorship and oppression that authors face, right? I think it's very telling, right? That it starts from it can always start from a very innocent place of not wanting to offend people or their sensibilities today, but it can also go to those extremes of literally having a bounty put on your head and having to live in hiding because of what people getting offended by what you write or do, right?
Yeah.
So it's and like you, I don't want to that discussion, that slippery slope. I don't want to start going down that slippery slope where we have to really every decade or something like that look and see, last decade, this people, you can't use this kind of words anymore, and then now we got to take them out from the books. Because like you said, we really can go back in history, and a lot of stuff that was written in the past is and remains problematic. But should we be putting blinders on our young people and our children and telling them that, like this, the world is perfect, it was never, nobody ever did anything bad in the past and all that. So yeah, like you, I think disclaimers are probably the better solution. And one thing that went through my mind was like, but if you put a disclaimer at the front of the book, Like how you were reading out the disclaimer, you're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Basically you don't even care about disclaimer, right? You exemplify why people don't care about disclaimers. But,
I just say, like Gone with the Wind.
Yeah,
the
disclaimer, blah, blah, blah. You literally said blah, blah, blah. You don't care. Nobody cares. But I think then maybe it's about how the disclaimer is presented. Does it need to, be a little asterisk next to a text, a body of text or something, and then a little footnote at the bottom of the exact page itself, right? Because I think that actually might be more helpful, especially in this day and age. We're very used to, you read a passage of text and then there's a hyperlink and then you text and you click that hyperlink and then it brings you somewhere that gives you a little more context about the article, right? Us as like people in our late 30s and 40s, we know how to do that already. So you think about our children's generation, they are totally comfortable with things like that, lah. So I think you should give them the option and you should present the information as easily as possible to them about why certain things that are written or said in the book today might be problematic if you use it in today's context, and why you should think twice about using words like that, right? Of course, this sounds like a lot of work. Of course, it sounds like a nanny state. Of course, it sounds like who has the time and money to do so. But what I'm saying is that is a necessary thing to do in order to balance with how people think about the text today, lah. And it's true that there's a lot of stuff that we watch from our past that that today just won't hold water, lah. Movies like classic movies like Chinatown, or even Woody Allen's entire catalog and Roman Polanski's catalog and all that. But yeah, it's kind of I think everyone should have a chance to grapple with that question of the moral criticism of an art piece, lah. Does you tie it to the moral criticism of the author? Do you tie it to the moral criticism of the art, or is it just you are just enjoying the art for what it is as well, lah? I think that's something that everyone should have a chance to grapple with, and not be given a sanitized, washed down version of things, just to hopefully, in a sense, in a way that you don't get offended. Because if you don't get offended by whatever they give you, you might be offended by something else within the book. And then after that, what are you going to do? Redo another edition again? I mean, you can't keep doing that you can't keep basically giving way to just the loudest voice in the room, right?
But I thought
you got to acknowledge there's a lot of different viewpoints, yeah.
But I thought you hate the slippery slope argument.
I don't like the slippery slope argument, and that's where I feel that this becomes a slippery slope, in the sense that you start with one text and then you start with one piece of something that could be offensive, then it leads on to something else. So I don't want it to become a slippery slope thing. Okay, so sorry, you're asking me why am I using that as an argument, right? Yeah. So for me, it's I think the problem with words, I think words itself is like I mentioned, the words that they pointed out, there's such there are just so many things that could be problematic in the book, right? We're talking about a lot of words, and this is just one tiny morsel of it, but it's already like, as you can see, it's starting to create a lot of discussion and a lot of people digging into their trenches about what should and can't be done. So I feel like the reason why I say that I don't want to go down a slippery slope is because I feel that there are better alternatives. There are better alternatives that haven't been explored, about like what you say, putting disclaimers, and for me, even more extreme, putting a disclaimer on every page or something like that comes up. Then, and it's just not a, like, if there are alternatives, why are we choosing that slippery slope? Why are we choosing the one that will lead down to a slippery slope?
Then what if, like, 5 years down the road, IMDA comes and tells us, okay, Harish, Terence, you need to put a disclaimer on every podcast in your entire catalog, because it's free and you also swear and all, or you just go back and use AI to change that. So instead of like fuck you lah, it'd be like fish you, Terence. Fries. This is fried up. Yeah.
I mean, we laugh about it, but
it could be done, what?
It's already happened already, what? All our episodes with COVID in the title, or where we discuss issues with COVID, there's a very big COVID disclaimer on every episode. On Spotify, on the interface, on the user interface. And I'm totally okay with that, because if it makes you stop and critically think a little bit about what we're saying, then our job here is done already, right? There's a piece of news that's out there. We discussed it, but our opinion might not be it's not law for sure. So please go and read up about it. Please go and look up official sources and think a bit more about it. So yeah, it's already being done, and I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. But like what you said, going back and then having to censor and then run AI through and change our voices, the way we say things, I think that's more problematic.
Maybe by the time people listen to this 5 years down the road, the podcast would have started is, "Hi, I'm Harish, and this is..." Say your name.
Terrence, yes.
Terrence. And whatever we say next is purely our own individual opinions. We mean no harm, and we respect opinions of all others. This is a fictional podcast. Yeah. So then, who knows what will come. But I think one thing is, it's also probably a factor that this is a books for children. Because if it's adult books, I think the scope of words to be replaced would be a lot narrower. And then, that little fun fact that you also just discovered, like I did, that, their entire catalog is owned by Netflix. If I put on my silver foil hat, right, also feels like, could they have kind of like pressured the Roald Dahl company to do these changes, for Puffin to do these changes? Because Netflix could just be like, yo, we are going to make music. There's already a musical out, right? We're going to just blow the shit out of the water. This is going to be our Marvel universe, the Roald Dahl universe. Yeah. We can't have this shit floating around.
Yeah. It's true. And it's, like whether it's Disney or Netflix, a lot of these companies that influence our pop culture, that basically dictate our pop culture, seem to be going in that direction of, rather than people having tough conversations about what can or can't be put in front of them, they want to be the arbitrators, right? They don't want to even present you the option of thinking for yourself whether you can interact with a piece of content that is deemed a bit more controversial, right? So I don't like that, I don't like that. It's a very, recently I think I've had a discussion with you where I think in the current generation of the current zeitgeist, there's this very strong avoidance of conversation. There's this very strong avoidance of having to talk to someone about an uncomfortable issue, even when you have to, when you should, right? When you're unhappy with someone, or you're unhappy with your job or your boss or something, rather than bring it up to a boss or through the most immediate, most available channels, people seem to want to go to a figure of authority or complain to police or put on social media first, and then through that, then put pressure on the other party that you should be talking to as a human being, right? And I find that that's a real problem when kids and young people don't even have the space to navigate playground politics themselves, always having parents or teachers intervene and settle problems for them. I mentioned it a million times before, reading something like The Coddling of the American Mind, and just understanding that there is data to also show that having parents and having figures of authority settle problems between children actually leads to them having much less independence and ability to solve problems themselves later in their adulthood, and I kind of see that here, you don't want your kids, your argument is that it was a children's book, right? And that's therefore it's very tricky. But at the same time, you can't shield your kids from the world forever, right? They have to grapple with it at some point, and it should be the parents or the educator's job to make sure that you explain to them and you make the environment safe for them to learn. Certain things that are in this book might not be very nice or might be quite mean-spirited, and we still shouldn't. We are reading it here, but understand that the book came from a place where they didn't understand what we know today, and of course that's a difficult conversation to have. It takes time, and that's why maybe people are like, "Oh yeah, I don't want to deal with it. Netflix go and deal with it. Roald Dahl go and deal with it," and then come back when everything's sanitized and cleaned up already.
So are you going to order from Amazon the entire original catalog or Roald Dahl or not?
No, it makes me
keep it in your safe.
Order. I already have it at home already, somewhere, probably in some box somewhere. I'm going to dig it up and with all its like the spots and the mold on it. I want to explain to my kid, this is what life was like before before the world went crazy.
This will be on the black market of your kid's school next time. You're like, hey bro, you got the Roald Dahl, the original.
Like,
they're like,
last time, you got Playboy magazine. Big deal, you bring this. I don't know. Last time I had
all the Maxim magazine, or not even Playboy. Maxim. Maxim also put in the locker or
hide it. Wow.
Yeah. FHM, remember FHM?
Yeah. Teachers coming and confiscating the magazines. Yeah.
Now it'll be Roald Dahl, man.
Roald Dahl, yeah. It's contraband item, banned.
Contraband item.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I don't know. I mean, as in, where does that sit with you in terms of like, all the very beloved franchises and IP? Like,
I mean, I love Roald Dahl. I think BFG is one of my all-time favorite books. And I remember it was one of the few books that I reread when I was young. I didn't read a lot of the Roald Dahl ones because I didn't have the books. But the BFG, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
But you could have gone to the library and read what? Why you didn't have to have the books to read it. You could have read them in the library or something.
Yeah,
right?
the thing, I never grew up with that. Oh, go library, read book. It's like if someone gives you the book, or for some reason you get a book or something. Yeah. Reading was not not enforced lah. Like my reading habits right now also. I mean, I consume a lot of content online, but my reading of books is at this point, it is just a belief that I need to do it. That I will. It's a bit like
what you thought of what you used to think of food, lah, right? It's just food is just like a fuel for your body and nothing more. Correct. It doesn't add any color to your life. So what's the point of spending so much time on it?
I mean, it adds some color, lah. But to ask me to queue up 45 minutes for this color, then I'm like, fuck lah, no. I'm just gonna get this in 3 minutes, and it gives me enough
I think
color.
45 minutes extreme, but you also give a black face every time. Like I queue up for like the nice taipeng. I choose the nice taipeng. Then there's a slightly longer, a bit longer than normal. Then you give this black face, like what? I have to wait another 5 minutes for other people.
I don't appreciate your choice of words. I think you need to retroactively use another descriptor of my face, Terence. Okay, please learn from the Roald Dahl.
I cannot say blackface. Wow, we've crossed into.
Can't you just say an annoyed face? Huh? An annoyed face is like free of any social perceptions or racial prejudice. Terence.
Correct. Yeah. I was so blind to my privilege. I didn't even
you need a
realize
sensitivity editor. And I did say I wanted to talk about sensitivity readers. Basically, there are people who are employed to read or proofread scripts, manuscripts. I think it extends to scripts of books, magazines, TV shows, and more often than not, I think they come from some sort of marginalized background as well. So it's almost like, you want to tell this Indian joke, you go ask your Indian friend, hey bro, okay or not? That's like the TLDR version of a sensitivity reader. So I know even that whole sector of the industry has also gotten backlash, because it's one of those things that if you are a writer, you pour your heart and soul into this, every part of it means something, and then they're saying, okay, let this person read it and tell you what's wrong with it. Is it completely wrong? I don't know, because I think sometimes there is a use for it. But then it becomes like, oh shit, I hope this doesn't mean that certain books that need to push boundaries or just put stuff out there gets curtailed. Like, can you imagine if they do it for podcasts? Like, one thing that is so nice about podcasts and the podcast space, more so than YouTube and video, is that it feels harder to regulate or regulated less. And with it comes some freedom, comes some freedom. So with this whole book thing, like, I think in Singapore, we first caught wind of things being done to older books was with the two penguins, right? The NLB.
Yeah, when the books were being pulped. Yeah, literally
when they were being
burnt,
pulped.
Right?
Yeah, but then now it's happening more and more often. And I found out that there's actually a word to describe this, no? Do you know or not? What is it? It's called bowdlerize. I saw it float around in BOWDLERIZE. Bowdlerize. And I pressed the pronounce button, so I'm pronouncing it properly. So it just means to remove material that is considered improper or offensive from a text or account, especially with the result that the text becomes weaker or less effective. Bowdlerize. Such an annoying word, but bowdlerize.
It's a more negative. It's a negative term of the practice, right?
It feels negative.
I see other words like expurgation that also are the same meaning. But bowdlerize seems to be a negative connotation of it. But it's actually as an aside, as an aside, since that we're talking about the topic, Hogwarts Legacy has been in the news quite a bit, right? And because it's been in the news, but also because I heard that it's a very fun game, not an endorsement or anything. I actually just tried it out over the weekend. And one of the interesting things is that it's an open world game that allows you to create your own avatar as a apprentice wizard or trainee wizard in the school, right? So the crazy thing is that I guess because they know they have to appear inclusive and everything already, right? A lot of the options that used to be in there that I would expect for any kind of game where you create a character, they kind of remove those options already, lah. So for example, there is no you don't go in and you say, I want to create a character and the gender is male or female. There's no more gender that way. You go in there, they ask you to, choose a character, and they present to you a bunch of faces, right? And then just from the faces and the hairstyle, you choose whatever gender you want to be, right? So that's one interesting thing. And the good thing is that, the good thing is that between the faces also, they don't explicitly say, please choose your skin color. They just present to you a bunch of different faces with different skin colors, and then they let you decide what you want to be. Okay, fine.
This one you're comparing to previous games in the past where you can literally go down to that.
Yeah, you're choosing, I'm male, female, then my skin color, I choose, there's a few palettes of skin color I choose. And then based on the skin color, there's certain features of the face and all that. So they've gone away with all that. They just present to you a bunch of faces and skin color. Then after that, you choose whatever hairstyle you want. And they don't go by male or female hairstyles anymore. It's like you can have a buzz cut and you can have long flowy locks. It doesn't matter. As a guy, as a guy playing the game or what, right? You can choose whatever hairstyle you want, right? So they've kind of removed anything that I think could potentially offend people that way, right? Where it's you choose your, by whether having to force you to choose between two genders or force you to choose between certain hairstyles or things like that, So they've done all that. And then I think the real kicker is, let's say, like me, a guy or that. Then after that, you can still even choose your voice to be male or female, so to speak, in the conventional sense of how we understand it. So you can have, someone who looks like a female who has a very, 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 very deep masculine voice, for example, or vice versa. So I think the game developers themselves have really gone to great lengths and really have tried to make the game as inclusive as possible in that sense, right? By taking away any conventional categories of people that you think about. But it still has gone through a backlash because people are now saying whatever, at the end of the day, it still puts money in J.K. Rowling's pocket, and that's the big problem. It's not so much about how inclusive the game tries to be.
Yeah, so I've seen that angle, but the fact that you were saying that that it is more inclusive. It still sounds like a good thing that they are trying to be more inclusive. But as you were talking there, I was just thinking, so far we've been taking the stance with regards to more the Roald Dahl stuff. Is like, this is not a good thing. But then, just to go on the other side, in the sense like, if there was a passage in one of the books that made fun of Indian people, how would I feel? And because it's one of those things, right? In Singapore, you grow up like, the anne, the apu nene, apu nene come and catch you. Ultimately, it's stuff that people say to kids that sticks with them till maybe they're older. And if you read a children's book that says, instead of Oompa Loompa is like Apu Nene or something like that, how would I feel? Would I prefer it if it is removed? No way. I think I would still prefer to have it in its original form, but the disclaimer or the thing this calling out that, this is not a good thing to say. He said it then. This is a story he crafted, but this is not a good thing to say. You don't say these kind of things now. Because otherwise it also takes away from how much society evolves, That was happening in the 80s. It's not cool, but and now it doesn't happen anymore, because otherwise, I don't know. I think it just, even when I play the angle and all, I feel like, but the the Harry Potter thing, I do feel that maybe that's a good step, that it is inclusive. Like when it stuck out to you, were you like, oh, I can't believe it, or like, oh, that's cool, I would think my kid it's good for my kid.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, maybe it'll take you a bit longer to craft your character and everything. But to me, it's like, okay, but it does sort of just present to you a bunch of different options that maybe you would never thought of, like that. That people want to play different types of characters in the game, especially in a game like Hogwarts Legacy, like where it's an open world game where you can be anyone you want to be as well, And if it does make you a bit more empathetic of the people and characters around you, sure, So yeah, I didn't see it as a bad thing. I was just pointing it out as quite surprising to me, quite new to me, given my understanding of how games have been, and having played games for a big part of my life, interfacing with this, and I was like, okay, it's really a generational leap that people are making in terms of trying to make games more inclusive for everybody who plays, and not just for the male demographic of gamers and all that, right? So it's it's not a bad move. And like what you said, I mean, besides, I think that's something that everyone can relate to. Everyone is part of some minority or some group in some way, right? And if you see your own minority or group being made fun of in certain ways, I mean, there's this, I don't want, the things I don't want to miss the chance of being able to educate my kid about like why this is wrong, right? If he comes across the book and he asks questions about it one day, what you want is the kid to be able to ask you a question about it, right? And then you have a chance to actually explain it. Whereas if the kid is never confronted with it, and someone else one day confronts him with it, and then that person becomes the teacher or the one who gives your kid that lesson, then I think then it's not good as a parent that someone else is teaching your kids values in the way they see fit, as opposed to you having a chance to do it.
Yeah, I guess hopefully your kid doesn't come up to me one day and say, hey, Uncle, I'm Oompa Loompa. They're like, Terrence, we need to have a chat.
Yeah.
Actually, the context of Oompa Loompas also, I mean, they're not like, they're like small people, is it? They're dark-skinned small people.
I don't know if they're dark-skinned or yeah, probably. I think they were just making fun of a lot of racial stereotypes back then. Yeah.
But interesting. And I mean, I think especially for teachers also. Yes. Are there any teachers listening to this?
Just to answer your question, I think, I mean, the book was published in 1964, and the author depicted Oompa Loompas as black pygmy people from Africa.
And that was a controversy, That was a controversy.
That he had to rewrite, I think, in the 70s.
I see.
So yes, sorry, you're saying?
I can't remember. No, I was saying like if I'm just curious, like from people who teach kids for a living, and having to deal with text and literature, just whatever thoughts you might have, So if you do have thoughts, please head on over to our subreddit and leave them there.
Yes, it's not an easy topic to talk about and to tread, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But but not saying that the next topic is easy. But maybe there'll be less debate about it because you can literally tell people to shut the fuck up using your app, right? So yes, and what is this fantastic app that where you can tell someone to shut up and not talk to you?
It comes from a company that has been in the news quite a bit of late. It is Grab, and on 15th February, so last week, they launched their new quiet ride service for Singapore commuters. I think it's so far Singapore, who prefer like one of those your Grab ride to have minimal conversation. So I mean, they posted on their Facebook page, you asked for a bit of quiet and we heard you loud and clear. Quiet ride is now available in Singapore, so you can now opt into conversation-free rides. And you can toggle it on your phone, So I mean, it's basically when when you activate it, you will receive a notification in your Grab app informing them that it has been enabled. The driver assigned your booking will be notified of your preference, but with the disclaimer that he might still need to check certain things with you, like direction or something. So they did say no ride will ever be conversation free, as some essential comms still need to happen. So when you saw this, I was like, wow, is basically Grab sending a signal to society to say, guys, keep quiet, okay? Yeah. I don't want your comments about tin pilling or anything. Just keep quiet, okay? We're doing it for you now. Now you're gonna do it for us.
No, but this one is for the riders, right? I mean, not the riders, the drivers, right? That is the riders selecting that the driver needs to keep quiet, right?
Oh, yeah, correct.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so when you saw this, were you like, okay, so in general, even when you do take Grab, like, do you enjoy the conversations?
I mean, yeah, in general, sometimes I'm the one to initiate conversations with the riders, with the drivers as well. It's not entirely one way. But there are times also that I just put my headphones on and I just fall asleep or what, and I just wake up when I reach my destination. So it's my choice, It's my choice whether I want to engage with the driver or not, Yeah.
It's your choice, But typically, I would say more often than not, I would rather not have a conversation. Mainly because like right now, whenever I need to take public transport or ride share or something, there's probably some stuff that I really thought, okay, I'm gonna do it on my phone or sometimes laptop also during the journey. So when the conversation happens, that's when I'm like, oh, okay. But sometimes in rare instances, I do also feel like, oh, okay, there can be a conversation that could happen. But I don't know, something about this, I feel like I actually might use it, but at the same time, I feel like, wow, it's going to make things even a bit tricky for the driver, Because if I'm driving and I saw someone click once a quiet ride, it almost feels like, okay, you have to be hush. It's like, you're when you walk around a sleeping person, you kind of need to be like quiet. So that was one thing that occurred to me, But can you see yourself using this?
I think not in its current iteration. Again, I think similar to our earlier discussion about the Roald Dahl thing, I have some reservations about training a whole generation of people to think that it's okay that somehow the institution or the app or what needs to step in to prevent you from having an interaction with another human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As in, if you don't want to chat with somebody, I think there's ways to do it where you don't degrade the person to almost like feeling just like a robot like that. Like they need to shut up and not talk to me. I'm too high and mighty to have a face-to-face conversation with you. And maybe it's less comfortable. Maybe it makes your skin crawl a little bit if you need to actually have a conversation with people. But yeah, there are ways to not be forced into a conversation and feel like I need to Grab to step in and do this for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, actually that's true, because there have been times where I just tell the driver, I'm like, sorry, I really need to get this done. Do you mind if I just focus on this? I don't even say, do you mind? I just need to focus. And they tend to be very nice. And, as you were talking, I was also reading the FAQ on the help.grab.com. So the question is, how do I know if my ride is a quiet ride? Okay, you get a notification. Does quiet ride mean there will be zero conversation with my driver? And then they go on to explain that they will inform the drive partners that for the user's preference for minimal conversation, and then they give the disclaimer. Then the question, can I ask my driver about my trip? Yes, of course. Can music or radio be played? Yes, your driver may choose to do so. If you like some peace, you can politely ask him to turn the volume down. Can my driver answer a phone call? Yes, your driver may answer calls. And then one is like, I have opted into quiet ride, but now I want to initiate a conversation with my driver. What should I do? So it just feels like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. It's like you're creating this SOP for people, but in life there isn't an SOP for initiating conversation or ending a conversation with someone, and you kind of like what we were talking about at the start of this podcast. You got to read the room a little bit. You can't just be like, okay, I'm here, I'm your dinner guest here, and I'm interested to talk about politics. Do you want to talk about politics? Yes, no, yes, or no? Oh, okay. So you stay out of this conversation. Everyone else, let's talk about politics. Nobody does that. And I mean, it's a joke if like that's the future of humanity, right?
The next time you try, you invite people over, you're like, okay, choose the topics you would like to talk about and what you would like to be excluded from.
Yeah, we tried that. We tried. I think I tried that once with I think I had a bunch of, you were one there, I had a bunch of people over, and then I was like, hey, everybody, let's
idea.
Let's switch on the TV and everyone just put up one YouTube video that you want to show everybody. Okay, how about you first, Harish? What do you want to, let's show us an interesting YouTube video. And then we one by one went through.
Basically, you know the experience that, okay, if you're listening and you've had the experience where you think your video that you saw is fucking good and you play to one person and they have no reaction. And you know, is the video's 3 minutes long, 1 minute in, you're like, okay, it's going to get good, it's going to get... By 2.5 minutes, you know you're screwed. Imagine doing that to 6 people. On a weekday night dinner, when everyone just came after work, and Terence, like, we're all talking already. We're all talking. It was me, my wife, 2 friends, Terence and his wife, and Terence like, guys, I'm going to turn on the TV, and we go clockwise.
Everyone show one interesting video that you watched recently.
Oh my god, that was the worst dinner game ever, man.
Yeah. So yeah, at least I would say that it wasn't from me not wanting to talk to people, not wanting to find out about people. But it was more like I guess I was very excited about watching a video or something. And I was like kind of like, okay, well, hey, like, yeah, actually everyone got some, we haven't seen each other in a while. Is there something interesting that you saw that you want to share? I mean, and that's very much in line with what we do with our one Shiok thing and all that, right? Like, share something interesting. So it's, in some sense, it was for me to also find out more about the people I was with. But yeah, I realized it's not a great way to interact with a bigger group of people. Maybe one-on-one still not so bad, but like with a bigger bunch of people, 6 people and all, it's
lucky
tricky. Yeah.
We all know you. It wasn't like your first time you meet your wife's friend or something.
Yeah. Don't do that for first time meeting people. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, what you said is true, lah. This feels like you've heard the snowplow parent, right? This is the snowplow app. I mean, come on, lah, walao. If you don't feel like talking, just say. And is there the converse for the driver? Let's say the driver doesn't want to talk to a chatty passenger. Just because the passenger is the one paying the driver, have to just talk, lah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't know. Yeah, it's again, like, just, it's not the most pleasant thing to have to tell someone, hey, like, I need to focus on my work. Can you just give me a minute? But if it needs to be done, it has to be done. And those are the kind of face-to-face conversations that you need to have, rather than just like, people are not robots, so you just switch them off and they don't have feelings and all that after that,
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean, I've been in a situation where the driver wants to talk a lot, and I, whether it's if I try the more subtle cues like listening to headphones, and if that doesn't work, like I've had to say, hey, do you mind? I just need to read this thing for a while and give me some time. And then after that, after I'm done with it, I can let me answer your question or what. And I think people, at least you give them you let them down gently like that, then they don't feel so aggrieved, But if you really like,
it's a skill,
it's a two-way thing. You're also
teaching.
You're also teaching the person, like, hey, you need to read the room a bit better about whether to talk to someone, and there's no switch or app that you just switch on, like, oh, this person that wants to talk, this person doesn't want to talk. That doesn't operate like that in life, right? And so then you're also just depriving the person of a chance to grow and learn that, okay, this is how conversation works. This is how making yourself, putting yourself out there and being more interesting and engaging someone conversation works, So because I watched some, like, I think there was some news websites that did reactions to this app and all, to this new feature in the app. Like, they interviewed people and a lot of them were young people saying like, it's very awkward to have to tell the driver sometimes, and it's very awkward to have this conversation. So maybe it's a good way to just ask them to keep quiet and all. But I think that to me tells that they lack of empathy. There's a lack of empathy. What if you were in that situation where you are the driver, and you know, you're kind of just trying to, you're not, maybe out of politeness or whatever, you're also just trying to make conversation with the person that you're seated in a very close proximity with. And that's how they've been brought up as well. Because that's their upbringing. And you can't like, there's no SOP or rule that you need to follow about how to do it. But they learn by practicing it. But and if you don't give them a chance to practice, you're also depriving them a chance to grow as people. So I don't know, man. It's just, I mean, we complain about nanny state and our government being too involved in everything, but I think this is worse, right? When like those, you know, all these private entities start becoming like the like being the nanny and sort of like giving you such an easy out in life, lah. Yeah.
So can you see yourself using the quiet right option?
No, I don't. And I mean, when I say I don't mean don't use it in its current iteration. That sometimes I don't like it when the music in the car is blasted too loud, for example, right?
Yeah.
So I think if this quiet right option is about like whether it's telling a driver don't use your music too loudly or don't speak too loudly in your phone and all that, I think that's okay, right? Like, you know how there's I think like when you travel to Japan, for example, in the trains and public transport, there's a lot of reminders. Please do not speak loudly. Please do not use your phone in the train, right? Because it is a disturbance to people, and it's quite unnecessary, listening to loud music or using your phone loudly. So I understand that aspect of it, but then when it comes to conversation, there's just like, I don't know, it just seems wrong to me that you're using an app to tell someone not to talk to you, right?
Yeah. I mean, even the music thing, I feel you can just ask. I mean, it's human, human to human. Yeah, just ask. So I don't think I started off this conversation saying I might use it, but then the more we talk about it, I'm like, no, like I don't want to lose it's like my Malay lah. You know, I studied in primary school. I don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not my Malay shit. Suddenly, I don't want it to be the case that I suddenly lose the skill of being able to tell people that, okay, can you stop doing this one thing that's a bit like that?
Yeah.
Because that's jalas, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a big part of the childhood education now. I think there's a very big movement towards like parents you got to, you know, give your kids a chance to tell you when they don't want to do something as well, you know?
Yeah.
And rather than like, oh, you can do this, you can't do this, you can do this, you can't do that. Then they never question the why, and they never think about critically for themselves why they can't or why they shouldn't do something. Then when they finally have a chance to do it without parental supervision, they'll go and do it, you know?
Yeah,
and that's what, you know, we talked about it, like that there was that lady who refused to let her child eat cake in school and things like that. Then a lot of people are saying that one day when the child has access to cake himself, he'll just gorge himself and just eat the shit out of cakes, you know? And I think that's what will happen with when you police their conversations and what they can or can't say too much, and there'll always be that socially awkward person who doesn't know when is how to read a room or how to enter or leave a conversation gracefully and things like that. Not saying that we are fucking great at it, right? But I would say that these are things you learn over time, and it's like what we said earlier about dinner conversations. We over time, we understand, we adjust to what, you know, the feeling, the room, what you can or you shouldn't talk about, and what's your outcome in talking to people. I think that's a big part of what you need to think about.
Yes, yeah. It's weird. I might just try it once to see what happens, lah. Maybe I'll just try it once to see what happens. Because it's weird, lah. But I mean, of course, if people, I mean, this is one of those things also. That's why today's topics were quite interesting, because it feels like it could go both ways. So if I'm just curious what people think. Would they ever use the quiet right function?
Yeah.
So yeah, these two topics we spoke about today are interesting because there's really no right or wrong answers. So if you've got some thoughts, just go to our subreddit or message us on Instagram and let us know what you think on either or both of these topics. Whether or not you will use the quiet right, and whether or not you will show your kid or hypothetical kid the original Roald Dahl books.
Oh no, contraband. The FHM of this generation.
The FHM. Cool. All right. Shall we jump to the one Shiok comment, man?
Yes. And what is your one Shiok comment?
My one show comment is on Reddit from Majestic Economist 6, also a long time commenter. And it was on the thread where I shared the what ChatGPT outputted when I asked it to tell me a joke about an Indian and a Chinese podcaster who are worried about artificial intelligence. You can read the whole joke on Reddit, but what Majestic Economist 6 is it? They typed, "Is Yalabat a good podcast to listen to for Singaporeans?" And this is what ChatGPT answered. I'll just read the first two paragraphs. As an AI language model, I don't have personal opinions or preferences. However, I can provide you with some information about the Yalabat podcast and its relevance to Singaporeans. Yalabat is a podcast hosted by 3 Singaporeans, Terence, Harish, and Vernon, who discuss a variety of topics related to Singaporean culture, society, and current events. The podcast aims to provide a lighthearted and humorous take on these topics while also offering some thoughtful insights and perspectives. And they go on to say, like, we'll touch on politics and social issues, and that whether or not it's good depends on the listener. But it's just funny. Who the fuck is Vernon? Is it some combination of Tristen, Rishi, and Andy, who probably are the names that feature most on our podcast, lah? Yeah, that was just hilarious. Vernon.
Yeah.
Hey, Vernon.
I mean, I'm just wondering if there's any reference to I don't know if they're still around. Those two guys who used to the radio show,
the Muttons,
right? Yeah, it was Vernon A and who's the other half of the Muttons?
Oh, the less well-known Mutton.
Vernon
Brian.
A and who's that? Justin Ang, and Vernon A.
Oh, Justin Ang.
Right.
Oh, shit, yeah. Oh, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know whether because it's like racially diverse duo that does a talk show kind of. That's why they somehow pulled from there into our podcast.
Vernon.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is Vernon?
That's why it's a bit of a mystery, and I think a lot of people also like, is there like a secret Vernon in the room or something that we don't
in the
know
Yalabat
about,
dungeon.
Yeah.
But what about you? What's your one Shiok thing?
My one Shiok thing is again just going to our TikTok, which I think again has a very interesting, very different audience as well, right? I'm not sure if it's the same audience that also listens to our podcast as well. But they react very strongly to like these short snippets of our podcast that we put out there. And I think, for example, recently we put out a video called PP's response to Tin Pei Ling and Grab, that whole issue. So there's a lot of quite angry responses to what happened in the Tin Pei Ling Grab saga. But the one that I wanted to point out was pretty funny, in that I think there's a point where you said "Hua Lamak," and like someone in there, Put Mouse pointed out that Hua Lamak came from the heart Seoul. So maybe Hua Lamak needs to be, we need to trademark that. And then they specifically spell it Hua and Lemak as in nasi lemak. Hua Lamak. So maybe that's something we need to say. Yeah, you heard it first here on Yalabat lah. Hua Lamak.
Hua Lamak.
Yeah. So it's funny if someone pointed it out, because in my mind I just think of it as just the way someone says alamak, but Hua Lamak is like, I think we've used it before, right? In the way we talk about things.
Hua Lamak. Yeah. Hua Lamak. I don't even know where the hell that came from.
Yeah. Came from the heart. Came from the heart, yo.
Came from the heart. Correct. Yeah, correct.
But yeah.
Came from the heart.
Yeah.
Cool.
What is your one Shiok thing?
My one Shiok thing, right, is not, it's fucking disturbing, but it's only Shiok because it blew my mind in very dark ways, lah. Because I came across this one article called "Why These Children Fell into Endless Sleep." Have you heard of this term called endless sleep?
No.
So it follows this neurologist who went to Stockholm. I mean, this article was written in 2021 and was called in to observe this one young girl called Nola, who was in bed asleep. So the thing, why they call it endless sleep, right, is because they started noticing a trend especially in Sweden, where these children from below 10 to teens would 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 slowly start showing symptoms of like lethargy or reclusion or social anxiety, and slowly they would withdraw from friends and all, and then they would feel very tired, so they would sleep a lot, and then suddenly they just don't wake up. And it's called endless sleep because right now, or at least when this article was written, it couldn't be diagnosed because it's not a coma. I think they still respond to more stimuli than someone who's comatose would. They're not dead, but they're not alive, and their brain activity kind of resembles sleep. So it's crazy because she said she was mind blown, and the issue is because it can't be diagnosed. These kids can't get official help in hospitals, like they can't be admitted. And then through her research, which I think is still ongoing, or the research showed that this tended to appear amongst kids who underwent extremely traumatic childhoods. And the kids in question tended to be refugees from other countries that were taken in by Sweden. And stories of like the Nora, I think her mom was gang raped when she was younger or something, and she took it out on a kid. So it's not a Shiok thing, but it blew my mind because you can read it up. It's called resignation syndrome. So the causes are still very in limbo right now. But it's generally seen as is a very specialized response to the trauma of refugee limbo. So you read it, you're like, oh my god, this is insane. I like it. Just even now reading it, and like it's chills, it's chill. So it's just, if you want your mind to be blown or like shocked in some way, just read that article.
And it's something that affects children, right?
Yeah, children.
Asylum
migrant children. Yeah, typically. So I mean, in terms of the scale, I think between 2003 2005, 424 cases were diagnosed, were reported for. So it's not a small number, it's not a huge number, but the fact that happened and still continues to happen, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, mysterious.
Crazy, yeah.
Strange illness. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, so it's a chilling, not so shock, but mind blowing thing. And what about you?
Yeah, my Shiok thing is I mean, it's a bit more lighthearted and everything lah. It's YouTube. I won't deny it lah, but it also sends chills if you look at the context of what he's trying to say. But it's a YouTuber that I've been following called Joey B Toons. I'll not say following; it's been recommended in my feed lah. And he just basically does commentary about TikToks and stuff he sees on social media. Like he highlights clips and he just talks about what's going on in the clips in a very humorous fashion. So, like for example, one of his series is called Narcissists and Social Media. So he just highlights all these TikToks and videos of this that people are doing to put on TikTok, and just how ludicrous these TikToks can be when looked at in a larger context. So yeah, I mean, it's just one clip after another, and just his voiceover just talking about each of them in a very sarcastic fashion as well. So yeah, I mean, you may not agree with some of the things he says, because I think he goes a little bit to people's political views as well, right? But the truth is, there's a lot of strange content out there on social media. And this channel, I mean, this guy just pulls it up and highlights it and just provides some very humorous commentary of it. So,
and it's Joey B Tune.
Joey B Toons, like Toon and Z, yeah.
Oh.
And Z, yeah.
Joey B Toons.
Yeah. So yeah, Joey B Toons. I don't know, maybe it's recommended to me because YouTube knows that I bitch so much about the influence of social media on young people these days. But yes.
Nice.
I don't know, it's just a more brain dead one Shiok thing compared to your very serious,
so you can read the article I said and then go watch this, because the article I read is quite dark.
Yeah,
then you watch this.
But yeah, cool.
Sweet. Cool. All right.
Right. Talk to y'all soon,
that was the first of the week, and we will talk to y'all soon.
See y'all on Reddit.